Remember how Austin Butler was stuck in a perpetual Elvis voice? What if Timothy Chalamet was stuck in a perpetual Bob Dylan voice and he's just showing up to set on Dune Messiah like, I'm Anthony, I'm Paul Atreides, we saw Al Gaib. Oh, that was stupid and that was a bad Bob Dylan impression. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. Welcome to the channel, Dylanologist. So, Bob Dylan.
Once upon a time, you dressed so fine, through the bumps of dime in your prime.
A man I'm not overly familiar with, and I never grew up on his music. I've heard a song here and there, and his voice is just iconic and unique. So when a biopic called A Complete Unknown surrounding the rise of his career and his transition from folk to electric started to gain momentum, I'd be lying if I said I was looking forward to it. James Mangold directs this one, and he's already tackled a musical biopic in Walk the Line about Johnny Cash, so I was optimistic overall. It sounds like he knew what he was doing. But you know what actually won me over to warm up to this movie? The first trailer. The one that it's just Timmy singing over footage of just a taste of what the movie will have to offer. I think it's one of the best trailers of the year. So walking out of the theater to this one, I was delighted with how much I enjoyed it. It hit the spot. It warmed the soul.
I'm feeling happy.
This movie could have easily been too cookie cutter. It's another biopic about a white musician with a celebrated career as he evolved his sound, and more specifically, we follow Bob Dylan from 1961 into 1965. His rise and then his transition into implementing new instruments and an electric sound. Maybe he squabbles with his collaborators. Maybe he cheats on his girlfriend. Maybe he implements the political and social climate in his music. And that may be the case here, but I don't know. There's something about A Complete Unknown that keeps drawing me in. You get great performances out of all the cast. They're all portraying real life people, musicians, and figures. They sing and play instruments and act. Great triple threat showings here. Boyd Holbrook as Johnny Cash, a standout. Scoot McNairy as Woody Guthrie. He doesn't say a word, but his expressions hold a lot of it together. Edward Norton as Pete Seeger, the artist that really takes Bob under his wing and helps support him during the beginning of his career in the city. He adds this sense of maturity to the movie, and I'm not saying that because he's the oldest in the cast.
I ain't old!
But it's the way that he conducts himself and comes off as a traditionalist in his work. Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. She's fantastic. She does a great job in uplifting Joan Baez, who I'm sure nowadays is not as recognizable a name. But you see her influence on Bob Dylan to lean politically into his music. How her pre-established presence before Bob gave him a drive. And then balancing the tension in their rift-filled relationship and with each other's personalities and diverging career paths. There's the one scene where they are singing Blown in the Wind in bed and Joan is trying to relate to Bob as they sing together, but he's always had a barrier up. It's an interesting scene that I think defines a lot of the relationships Bob has with everyone around him. Then we go to Elle Fanning, who plays Bob Dylan's girlfriend Sylvie. And I know this character, they changed the name to protect the original girlfriend because she wasn't someone in the spotlight. But Elle Fanning then becomes a stand-in for us, the viewer, a normal person. We peek into Bob Dylan's life through her eyes. There's this heartbreaking distance that begins to form and wedge itself between Bob and Sylvie as his career takes off. And Elle Fanning has facial expressions that make me melt when she realizes she won't be able to satisfy Bob and what he needs, or she feels she won't be enough for his lifestyle. But that brings us to the man himself, Timmy Tim.
Statistic, yep. Statistic, yep.
Timothy Chalamet is just very good in this role. The voice, the vocal, the distant demeanor, it's all there. Again, I don't know Bob Dylan like that, but I think Timothy is doing good. I get why people are saying he's probably second or the potential upset for the Oscar. The sound design in A Complete Unknown is wonderful. Some musical movies fall into the trap of more sound equals good sound.
So if we play loud, people might think we're good.
And I don't think that's the case here. The music sequences are very good with the right amount of echo for its surrounding, like whether we're in a basement bar, whether we're in a theater, whether we're outdoors, whether we're using microphones or not. and there's a great balance of instruments and crowd and vocal. And then there's one title card where they flash the year 1965, and then you get rushed with a bunch of sounds in a montage, and I'm like, now you're just showing off. What may hold you back about this movie is what you think you are going to get out of it. Bob Dylan is known for being an enigma, so if you're looking for a deconstruction of that persona, you aren't going to get that. If you just want to see the mysterious Bob Dylan as you've learned to love him, that's who you're going to see. You see the barriers and the distant quality in Bob's personality from his friends, partners, and collaborators, more specifically in Sylvie and Joan, and how both women try to fill that space that Bob's not interested in exploring. He wears sunglasses all the time indoors at night, performing, and you see the distance start to build between him and Pete Seeger, the musician that took him under his wing and housed him in the start of his career. You see Bob's evolution of sound when he discovers his rock sound and how he introduces it and stands by it when he's trying to be talked out of performing the new work. You see the resistance to be boxed in or typecast, or to be shaken out of his instincts, like when he refuses to sing some older work with Joan. The Cuban Missile Crisis is highlighted in the movie, and instead of panicking in the street like most people were, he's performing in a lounge that night, but you especially see it at the Newport Folk Festival. Maybe Bob Dylan is one that doesn't want to be figured out, and I kind of respect it. Does it burn some bridges here and there? I mean, sure, but I look at his influence today. I look at his relevance today, and I see my audience singing the songs as they're leaving the theater. He's reaching the people he wants and needs to at the right moment in time. All that being said, the movie probably doesn't break out that much differently than any other musical biopic that you've seen in the last couple years. I listed all those tropes at the beginning of the video, and you see it all here, and in opposition to something like Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, which sensationalizes the stardom and whirlwind of fame, A Complete Unknown is more subdued in the glitz and glamour. There's still this grounded quality that allows you to try to connect to Bob Dylan. It's a double-edged sword for when you hit the familiar notes you've seen before, and then maybe you drift a bit because you can't really connect it to him. I felt the runtime some, and I think the first half of the movie is paced awkwardly. At one point we meet Sylvie, and it felt like maybe one scene later they were already in a long-term relationship. You get a lot of songs very quickly after the next, just hit after hit after hit. One thing I do appreciate is that we are highlighting a chunk of Bob's career and not like his whole life. Part of me is mixed on where we end right before the meteoric hit of his career, although I like the swing of an ending for the movie that ends on a low point. The Newport Folk Festival, where we leave his love interest and his good standing with other musicians, but you get the end card and the dialogue blurbs, and everything turned out fine. If I had to sum up this movie, it's like a piece of white bread.
Why you gotta be so rude?
Another musical biopic that really doesn't do much different than other musical biopics, and the subject isn't interested in being read or dissected, but for whatever reason, this is one of the best pieces of white bread I've ever had. Whether we decided to enhance it with a spread of supporting players or the want to understand our subject, no matter how at arm's length he wants to keep us, and the motivator is a secret recipe to this movie's draw. I'm not sure how much that made sense, but let me just say a bunch of people are eating this movie up like a bunch of birds eating breadcrumbs at the park. I'm one to keep nibbling at it. There's something that keeps drawing me back to want to rewatch A Complete Unknown. For the time being, I am giving A Complete Unknown 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's just super interesting how something so basic, and yet there's something so intriguing about the performances, about his personality, that makes you want to revisit him.
You're kind of an asshole, Bob.
Thank you for watching. My name is Kyle, and I'm still learning to fall in love with the medium of cinema. And if you'd like to join me on that journey into 2025, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and follow me on Letterboxd. Comment below your thoughts on A Complete Unknown, and comment what you want to see me introduce in 2025. Don't forget to like the video, and until next time, that's a wrap.